So
More
a
than
little bit
twice,
less.
right?
Sometimes more, sometimes less.
But on
But
average,
they all cost
double.
a lot.
Yeah.
Like, is Vegas 64 still like whatever, $85,000? I traded a Tesla
roughly.
for one. What? Yeah.
Roughly.
Is it
When
really still like
we first started covering this a couple weeks ago, one of my suggestions to get over in the meantime while prices were high was to buy a GTX 1050 Ti, because that thing's supposed to be $140. You can pick it up for 170, 180 bucks. Since then, it's up to 225 or so today.
Yeah.
So it's
Even the
just getting
cards
worse.
below that are starting to see inflation. It's crazy. It's really, really bad.
So, I mean, but Bitcoin is we've all seen the stories. Bitcoin is on decline, or at least let's say cryptocurrency mining is not a big deal.
Wait, so all the money I got is worthless?
Yeah, it's all worthless. But by the way, the IRS would like to talk to you about all that. Man. What the hell? I mean, I thought if cryptocurrency is crashing harder than the stock market, then the prices of video cards would get better.
I mean,
Well, it depends. They have peaks and valleys, cryptocurrency
Yeah.
all the time. So go
and
ahead. Elena.
I don't think we're going to see the prices react to that immediately. It's not like the stock market where it goes up and then it immediately comes back down and whatever. I think the cryptocurrency prices would have to lower and stay lower for us to start to see the graphic card prices drop.
And they're still profitable is the big
Yeah.
part. A lot of them are still profitable. So if you're making money on it still, why would you get rid of your hardware?
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's just funny because I mean, what do we have to get to where video cards you'll be able to buy them again? Is it? I mean, I just imagine going to retail, Best Buy, and the store's shelves looking like a zombie apocalypse, right? There's like nothing. People rushing in with you can get some celery stalks and like a GT, 580 at this point, right?
I went to Best Buy shortly after Christmas, and there was a single XFX RX 580 on the shelf, and it was selling for $500. So
Jeez. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
because recently you wrote an article, Brad, on PCWorld.com about it's a horrible time to be a gamer. A horrible time to build a PC because of all this. I mean, and it's not just GPUs. That's what we're focusing on here today. But it's like all around. We're getting squoze.
Yep. GPUs and RAM prices. Those are the two main
It's a-
ones.
killer combo.
Yeah.
Like I recently did a build guy of an article that had a Ryzen 5 processor and a GTX 1050 Ti, and the build for the thing wound up being $850 or something like that, which is a lot of money for that kind of hardware. But that's just what prices are these days. You couldn't get it any cheaper.
I mean, for that price, you might as well just go out and buy 2 Xbox One X's, right? I mean, you can game,
Sure.
you
I
can
mean,
get
just-
twice the
I
game.
mean, especially because Microsoft's doing all these promotions right now where if you buy one, you get a gift certificate for that retailer.
I went to I understand there's so much love between Valve and Microsoft that if you go to the Microsoft store, you can exchange your entire library of Steam games for all those free Xbox games. Is
that's
that true?
awesome.
Is that, yeah.
No.
Yeah. So no, cost of the actual software is still expensive, right? The games are not cheap.
Well,
so.
but Brad, last week, we did talk about this a little bit, and in the comments, you definitely got some people being like, "Really? Are you really recommending people play on consoles at this point?"
I do actually. Especially like
Defend
I said,
yourself.
with the GTX 1050 Ti being $225. I mean, you can pick up an Xbox One S, not the X, the S, for $180 at Target these days. I've been seeing that consistently over 2 weeks. And for $180, if you're just looking for a stopover solution, I mean, you get the whole console. It comes with a controller. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
If you can find a good GTX 1050 or 1050 Ti around the same price, maybe it's worth swapping that out in the meantime. But I would honestly, I'd just tell people to go get a console.
But the games, you don't, but we're sort of assuming you are starting from zero. Most people that are PC gamers already have an extensive collection of games on Origin and Steam and the like. And I just cannot really see them I just can't see switching.
I mean, I think it depends what they want to play. If they end up playing nothing but, third-party titles that are going to release on all platforms and they don't really necessarily care about having everything in one ecosystem, then you could basically do Brad's method of a stopover and say, well, I want to play the latest Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed, and this at least lets me do it now without too much pain.
Yeah, I just don't. For me, I could never do it because
I know
the controller.
What?
It's
No
like-
way. No
it's not
way.
even that.
Stop it.
Because look,
Stop it.
consoles are PCs at this point, right? They're just derivative PC parts. There are leftovers. Hey,
Right.
fine, let's admit it. That's cool. Great price. But there's no keyboard mouse. There's no keyboard mouse. For me, that is if you put a keyboard mouse on Xbox, I would say hell yeah. That's actually not
really. Somebody
Yeah.
mark this.
Yeah, right.
Well, it is just a PC, for God's
yeah,
sake.
please.
Let's face it. Thank God we let them have our parts, our old parts. At this point, I'm
Now,
sorry.
if
it
they
just-
give the graphics back, that'd be nice.
yeah, I mean, certain games, fighting games, sports games, yeah, controllers are great, but the vast majority of things that the PC is, superior at. There's just I don't see any crossover to console. I just don't. There's no RTS. How do you play RTS on a console?
It depends. Like Elena said, it depends on what you play. If you're one of the people who constantly plays League of Legends, who is playing RTS games, those traditional like PC strengths, then yeah, it'd probably make more sense to overspend and buy a RX 550. It won't do very well, but you'll still have access to all your games. But if you want to still have access to the new games and have them run semi-decently, I think a console is a better option than getting something like a GT 1030 or something like that.
Or just sit tight. I mean, this has got to end, right? I mean, actually, that is a really good point.
That's what we hope.
Hopefully.
What happens if this situation doesn't change in 12 to 24 months? Is it the end? I mean, because I don't know what we do. Because I don't know.
I mean, at that point, I think it's kind of force people who are gamers and not miners into these alternate routes of getting access to this hardware, which is what we're going to talk about eventually. I don't know if it's time for a segue or not.
Not
I
quite
have
yet.
something to talk about that later too. But I think if it sticks around for another year or two, then I think demand will be ramped up or supply would be ramped up to meet the demand.
Well,
right now everyone's kind of cautious because the last time that the first Bitcoin spike happened, AMD and his partners built a ton of GPUs to take advantage of it. And then the Bitcoin market crashed and all those cards got sold used and they were left holding tons of inventory of these new cards that nobody could sell because everybody's buying the used miner cards.
Right.
So they're all playing kind of cautious right now.
But I think Gordon's point is like, what if they play cautious indefinitely? Because they're always afraid the bottom's just about to drop out as they go into production. Then we're just going to be stuck with these conditions, right?
How long can we last? I guess. I
think if it winds up being a year, I mean, this is only a month or two old to be this bad. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yes,
2
'cause
months. Christmas.
it wasn't even bad at the end of December when I was looking
Oh.
at prices. It just happened right around CES, like early January. Just boom.
So, I mean, if it lasts a year, I think I would think that manufacturers would start to ramp up supply if you see consistent demand for that long.
Now, NVIDIA actually has tried to do something, though, haven't they? They went out and they warned people.
They did a PR kind of thing to try to help.
What? That wasn't enough?
No, someone asked them about it, and they said they encouraged their partners to limit, how many GPUs customers can buy, and only verified for gamers. But that's not something they can control or
They can do the limit though.
They just encourage it. Hey, we hope they're selling it to gamers. It's basically the extent of it.
And I'm sorry to back up real quick. Jamie, Yami, I don't know. I'm sorry. On Facebook, he says, "Can we narrow down the main reasons those are responsible for such GPU crisis and price escalation? I mean, is this just mining that's driving this up?"
It's mining. There's also the RAM problem that we were talking about earlier in general, talking about system memory. It's also inflating the prices of HBM2 and GDDR5. So the memory that's used in video cards have inflated prices right now. Like Gamers Nexus did a video. They talked to a bunch of people behind the scenes, and they said it's as much as $20 to $30 per graphics card. They have to spend more now on RAM. So that feeds into it. The insane demand for mining feeds into it. The fact that all these graphics cards are just so old at this point that there's probably new graphics cards generations somewhere around the corner, so they probably don't want to build tremendous stocks of current gen. You know what I mean? All that stuff kind of fits in.
And I still, in my pet theories, there's a lot of speculation going on because somebody's buying up all these. I mean, if you think about it, if you're Amazon, Newegg, Best Buy, whoever, you got a pallet of cards. You don't care who buys it. You just want to sell them.
Yeah.
If you're going to move them in, if you can sell 400 video cards in 2 minutes, it's better to do that to some miner than it is to like wait, 3 months.
True.
Dole them out over 3 months.
There's still customers. Like people hate on miners, but there's still people who are legitimately buying hardware to use them how they want to use it.
And sometimes quicker than gamers, right? Because if they burn out of the card, they're going to burn out of a card quicker than a gamer. So they could be buying multiple ones, right?
It varies. A lot of miners, that's a common conception, but a lot of miners actually reduce the temperatures and clocks in their cards so that it doesn't burn out so easy and it puts less stress on it. So
that's the old 290 days where people were just blowing them up, right?
Yeah.
Brad, I'm actually wondering also if the fact that cryptocurrency hitting the mainstream media also contributed to that, because I feel like that was the definitive difference between December and January, where December we all knew prices were inflated, but they weren't as inflated. But then, your CNNs and MSNBCs and all of the cable network, shows were talking about Bitcoin and how it's like taking off and people are suddenly like millionaires. And so I've been reading stories, like general news stories about people in, just random parts of the country who don't really know anything about it, but are thinking this is going to be my pension. And so they've gone out and started mining, like figure out how to mine because they want a little bit of that cash. So
it's true. I don't think it's any coincidence that Bitcoin hit $20,000 in December, and all those stories happened, and then this started spiking so hard at the end of December.
So I think the news cycle
because when
fed
Bitcoin spikes, all the associated ones like Ethereum and Monero and everything, they also spike to go along with it. So
And prices have all come back down though since then, or at least more reasonable prices.
Bitcoin definitely has. The other ones have also been plunging, but not as bad as Bitcoin across the board.
I mean, even I was.
How much did you make, Adam?
I was cautiously interested in trying it. Brad helped me, set up something to. I just mined for a couple days, on my 1070 at home, just to see what it was. I borrowed what did I borrow? What is that called? The power draw to see how much,
just a watt meter.
Yeah, just a watt meter to see how much power was being drawn and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was relatively easy to just set up, run a couple benchmarks and just let it go. And the power draw was like 320. Watts or something, on my system. And, after doing the math, it's like, okay, I could be up, but, it was averaging like, oh, you're going to average like $5 a day, and then a couple days in, it dropped down to like, oh, you're averaging $3 a day because Bitcoin, and then I was like, whatever, I don't really care. I don't have like a crazy operation here. So I didn't keep going with it. But I mean, it seemed so easy for people to get into. And I think a lot of people did, and it.
Until you try to cash out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting.
You could steal the electricity from your neighbor, Adam. It's like pot growers, like you wire it straight into the utility pole.
I wonder how many people are actually running their farms off of solar.
I mean, electricity it's funny. It's just like data center, right? It's just the problem is paying for electricity.
Right.
Energy is a problem. So, that should we actually? I'm wondering if that gets us to what to do for how to cope. How to cope, and this is a good reason to actually read reader email to prove that I read reader email once in a while when I do. This is from Dwayne White. He says, I have 4 PCs that I need to replace in the not too distant future. My son and I both have Core i7 or Core i5 750 and an i7 860. Ooh, Linfield. Those are old boxes. With 750 Ti's and a Radeon HD 7850. Even with SSDs, these machines are showing their age. My wife and our daughter are still using a Pentium dual-core machine with Radeon HD 5670 and an OEM Gateway Sandy Bridge i3 box that I slapped a Radeon HD 7750 into. With RAM and GPU prices going nuts, the pre-built boxes seem the way to go. Any recommendations on vendors you trust and maybe something I could purchase that gives decent performance at 1080p? Wife and daughter are not going to be overly concerned about frame rate and other eye candy, so as long as that's sexist, you never know. She could be playing at 3 o'clock in the morning at 4K, just so long as it performs adequately to give a good experience. My son are more critical FPS games. All right, and last question. I know how much Gordon loves consoles. I do have a current gen consoles in the house. I get the greatest satisfaction from a small Gigabyte Bricks APU box hooked up to the living room TV.
So loud.
I use this with 4 Xbox controllers via a USB dongle. Yeah.
Nice.
So this brings us to the next topic, where Elena has been doing research. We sent her undercover. She's actually been working at retailers. I'm lying.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. All right. So I'm sure some of you saw Brad had an awesome article on PC World about, just don't buy or don't do a DIY build, buy a pre-built one because you'll save hundreds of dollars.
Yep.
Literally true. So I said, okay, well, let's actually see what else is out there. And I tried to find the best options for 1080p gaming, 1440p gaming, and 4K gaming. There's a lot of options, but not all of them are great. And what I came up with was, and I actually ended up messaging Dwayne last night directly because I'm a little bit particular. I like to nail my suggestions on the dot. So I was like, well, what's your budget? And so he ended up telling me that he's like, well, I don't really want to spend more, let's say more than $800 per box. So he was thinking of replacing all 4 of them at no more than $800 a box, which I got to say,
that's solid.
Yeah, I got to say, man, I hope my family someday is willing to do that for me. And so the 2 options that I came up with for 1080p gaming were a clearance item on Lenovo's site, which is their Y720 Cube. I don't know if you remember that. It's this little kind of gray and black box. It's really cute. And for some reason, they still have stock of systems with a Core i5 7400, 8 gigs of RAM, and an 8 gig 480, RX 480.
Oh, damn.
So that right now, because it's on clearance, there's an extra 10% off. So the final price before tax is $720.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wow.
Yes.
That's less than you would spend on a 580 right now.
Exactly. So it's pretty much the same price as buying just that one part. And the nice thing is, so even though it only comes with a hard disk drive, so if you wanted faster boot storage, you'd have to buy an SSD and pop that in, which admittedly isn't the cheapest right now either. It's not as inflated as RAM or GPU prices, but even storage is a little expensive right now.
Well, and
in
Brad,
Dwight's case in particular, since he said he already had SSDs in the older ones, he could probably just swap them over.
That's true. I didn't even think of that. Wow.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. So you don't even have any extra outlay for that. So not bad. Comes in under 800.
Yeah.
I did our other option.
Dwayne has already bought everything one they had left. So if you're listening,
maybe. I have to admit, so we published a story yesterday, which is Monday. And so every time I do a deal post on a Monday, I sweat out the whole weekend because, you write it beforehand. And I always worry that the prices are going to change. So Monday at midnight, I was like, all right, before this publishes, I'm checking everything. I was so scared that someone was going to find the same deal and just buy the whole lot of them.
That happens. I've had that happen
It
on
does
articles
happen.
I've worked on.
So far, I think it's still there. So that's one option. And then I also asked him, I said, hey, well, I don't know what your tastes are when it comes to upgrading. Do you plan to try to upgrade these boxes down the road beyond maybe swapping out the GPU? I said, if that's the case, then you might want to look at another option. And so the other 1080p option I found, which is not really what I found, it's something that Brad found in his original article, which is one of the best prices out there, is a Dell Inspiron gaming desktop PC. It has a Ryzen 5 1400, so a quad-core processor, 8 gigs of RAM, again, a hard disk drive, and a 4 gig version of the RX 570. So still solid 1080p gaming, but you don't really get that 1440 option with the 480 that you kind of go up if you wanted to. Yeah. But it's a better path for upgrading. So because I was talking about this with Gordon yesterday, because the one drawback to these pre-built systems is that even though Zen motherboards, AM4, will support at least up into Zen 3, was it 2020?
Yeah, 2020.
It's not clear what chipsets are going to be supported. And so you'll need a BIOS update to drop in a new chip. And with these pre-built systems, it's not always clear if the vendor is going to issue that update for the motherboard. So with that in mind, I can't say for sure you'd be able to upgrade to like Zen Plus or Zen 2 down the road, but you could at least still drop in a much faster or many more cores within even the Zen family right now, or sorry, Ryzen family right now. So this is a better path for upgrading the CPU and then kind of waiting out prices for GPUs, and then maybe you'll be able to buy, you know, a better card down the road if you want to.
And for people who don't know, typically large OEMs like Lenovo, Dell, HP, they don't like to go back and issue new BIOS updates to support new processors. Mostly because they have to pay some engineer to validate it and make sure it doesn't blow things up before they push it out to customers, because they have real money, they can be sued. Mm-hmm. So if everything works, we leave it alone. You don't spend any money on it. If you want to mess with it for something that 0.5% of your customers might possibly do, it's not worth it to them. There are other options though.
Right. So third option, which is not listed in my article after I had the discussion with Gordon, was there's this CyberPower PC deal on Best Buy. And I think it's specific to Best Buy. I think it's a SKU they produce only for Best Buy, because I couldn't find it on their actual site, our CyberPower site. And so it's a little more expensive. Oh, sorry, I didn't give price for the last one. So the last one we just mentioned, the 570 system, is currently, I think, like $720, $740 with Dell's like 10% off coupon and sale price right now. This next system I'm mentioning, the CyberPower PC one, is $750. And it has a Ryzen 5 1400 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 4 gig RX 580. But because CyberPower, Gordon was telling me, CyberPower uses off-the-shelf parts, you're more likely to be able to use a Zen Plus, Zen 2, possibly even Zen 3. I don't know what chipsets it's going to support down the road. So that's a better option if you really want to upgrade things down the road. So there are options. Nice. Yeah, there are options out there. Oh, and this one has like the really fancy LED lighting. You can make it all different pretty colors. Really pretty there. Yeah, it's super nice.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's good to consider upgrades down the road, I feel, when you're buying a new system. But it's worth pointing out that the 75, the i5 7400, even though it's last gen, and the R5 Ryzen 5 1400 are still very good processors right now, and they'll last most people at least a few years to come.
Right.
Right. Because most gaming is not really multi-core anyway, so it doesn't really matter that it's quad-core. Versus,
but it is those, I got to say, we always say nobody ever upgrades, but then you're always that one person going, how come I can't upgrade? And, I've cruised plenty of times in Dell's forums, and people go like, well, how do I drop in? What CPU can I drop in? And there are actually people who do this because, there's a lot of these machines out there. You never know. 4 or 5 years, they're going to want to put a newer CPU in. So it is something people do. So
it is.
It does suck when you can't do it because they don't want to
but
push
it's
out a new BIOS.
For the Dell ones, I was looking it up because, when I make a recommendation, I want to think of as many potential use cases as possible. And it's really specific, the kind of like power supplies that you can swap out for because of whatever specific like voltage and the rails that they support in their particular PSU. So like if you don't get the correct one when you get off the shelf, it won't necessarily work right. And there's like these forum threads that just like kind of go, it's like this model from Corsair, but not this model from Corsair.
I didn't realize that. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. People used to rail at them. They've railed at large OEMs for a long time for using not industry standard. I think HP did pledge that they were going to follow all the standard industry specs. I don't know if Dell necessarily did.
HP. So I was actually looking at a Pavilion system to mention in this article for, budget gaming, not even 1080p gaming. And I asked them, hey, I'm just trying to figure out like what your position is on, replacing parts. And of course they came back and they said, we support industry standards, but due to our very specific standards and, engineering, we do not recommend at all that you replace the parts. And what else did they say? And they pointed out it also avoids your warranty.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah,
Which-
they're not going to ever make a definitive statement that you can replace parts.
They have lawyers that are standing looking over their shoulders as they
Yes.
talk to you, so they're never going to do it. But if they say they follow standards, that means you got a good chance of replacing power supply. Motherboards can get a little weird sometimes, especially with the cases and layouts, but they can get a little wacky with some systems.
Well,
So on
and-
their high-end systems, though, there's industry standard.
Real quick, a question over on YouTube. Leslie's wondering, can you update the BIOS yourself with these cyber power and systems and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would have to. You just would need to know what motherboard you're rocking in there, and then
Yeah.
just go to the vendor site.
So like just so people know, so you know the classic sort of very large OEMs, tier 1 as they used to be called, HP, Lenovo, Dell. These are huge companies. They sell millions of machines. Sort of like maybe a step down would be so these semi-custom vendors. I would consider CyberPower, iBuyPower. It's another equivalent nearby. And what they are, if you go to the websites, are crazy because you basically go through and you pick your motherboard, you pick your case, you pick your power supply. It's almost like you're paying them to assemble it for you. And they're mostly, from what I understand, they're almost all off-the-shelf parts because they can't. They're not like Dell and HP where they go on the engineer, have somebody Foxconn build them a specific motherboard.
Right.
You know, some people want an MSI board, some people want an Asus board, so you can just use the BIOS from Asus or MSI or ASRock or whoever makes the motherboard. So that's the nice thing about it, and because they are just using an off-the-shelf case and off-the-shelf motherboard. Your chances of upgrading it are pretty much 100%. So.
99.9%.
Yeah, whereas the ones like that Dell makes for all their computers, they would be the ones who would be in charge of issuing a BIOS update, and they're not going to do that.
Right.
But you know, I got to say though, I do think there's a good chance for their Ryzen-based systems because they're probably going to use those same motherboards for Zen Plus. So I think they'll just drop a BIOS or whatever is required or whatever.
Well, and on this topic, we've had a couple questions in chat about that. Is that an option? Can you go for the the new Ryzen APUs and get away with gaming while you wait for GPUs to come down in price?
So that's a good question. Brad, you want to go first or?
Yeah, I'll go first. That's actually something I'm very, very interested in seeing, and I hope to test that myself soon. Because I tested the last gen APUs, the A10s or whatever they were called, and they actually delivered surprisingly good performance. I mean, I had no problem playing esports games. I could play Rainbow Six Siege and Tomb Raider in like 720p low to medium settings. And these new APUs have Vega cores, so they're much more powerful than what was in there before.
Right.
So, I mean, you can't tell until you've actually tested them to be sure. But all indications point to this being a great stopover kind of option for gaming.
Yeah, and so there are two for desktop. There are two parts announced. I've been calling them Ryzen G, which is not really good because nobody's calling them that. But Ryzen G 2200, $99, quad core, no hyperthreading SMT/SMT. I call it hyperthreading because most people understand what that is. And it comes with 8 Vega core CUs, $99.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. A step up from that is the Ryzen 2400G, $169 MSRP, 11 CUs, and what you get with that is slightly higher boost at 3.9 gigahertz and 11 CUs of Vega CUs. And their own numbers this is from the CES information. This is what we publicly know. 3D Mark Time Spy, they're saying that a Ryzen 5 2400G is the equivalent in gaming, roughly, in Time Spy, of a Core i5 8400, which is $199, and a GT 1030, which is $89. Because I will say there ain't no way you're really doing anything on HD 630. So,
and just to go over the specs one more time, the 2400G is 4 cores, 8 threads, right?
yes.
Okay.
8 threads, SMT, 11 CUs, and they're saying GT 1030, which is what, 720 medium, maybe?
Is that gaming? Is that gaming at that point? Why not just get a console at that point?
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, because
720
Because you
medium.
can't play League of Legends on your PlayStation, Adam.
I don't know. I mean, that would be an interesting. What I want to know is it's $169. It's pricier, 11 CUs. I wonder how that stacks up against an Xbox One. What is it?
X.
S Pro.
Oh,
I don't
S.
even know.
The X.
I do wonder. I mean, because is it like a RX 580 ish maybe? Plus RX 580 in the Xbox One
In the
PS
X
Pro.
The X,
And the expensive one,
$500 model is supposed to be roughly equivalent to an RX 580.
Yeah.
The S model is not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not
So
even
I don't
close.
think. Yeah. I mean, it is decent. I mean, it's not really true 4K at 60 frames a second, right? It's more like 4K at.
I mean, some games can hit it, like Forza 7. You know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you can hit 4K on the PC with the 580 in some games too. It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
More
this is
often
not a
than not, you
580.
won't. If you're limiting yourself to 30 frames per second, it's a lot more durable.
Well, and Chan over on YouTube is wondering why don't they provide more than 11 compute units on the higher end one?
Well,
I guess-
yeah. Go ahead, Brad.
You can go first. It's all right.
It's just this is $169. There were rumors. I think there was a leaked story saying that there was a part with 25 CUs or 20 CUs spotted in some database, some benchmark database.
Yep.
So it is possible they will push out higher end versions of these things. But you got to remember, it's all on in a CPU package. You've got to cool it with a cooler. You're going to get a thermal. You're going to run into thermal and power issues. These things have to work on sort of existing, AM4 boards. If you're using too much power and they're say like, hey, you need this X number, higher end motherboard to run this, that may not really work out for people, especially the APU buyer. The other thing you got to remember is in a video card, even the lowly GT 1030, it's got its own local frame buffer running GDDR, 5 probably, right? So the only memory you're going to get out of an APU is your main system memory. And DDR4 it does not hold a candle to GDDR5. The performance is not going to be fantastic, and you will get more performance by running the memory speeds at higher clocks. But then you're running into paying more money to get how much performance.
I am curious to see because the older APUs were on the older AMD chipsets, so they used DDR3 memory at the time. So I am curious to see when these comes out whether or not faster DDR4 because it's so much faster than DDR3 was. How much of a difference that makes?
Right.
But what I was going to say earlier is pretty much what you were saying. I wouldn't be surprised if the reason we only see 11 Vega compute units is the same reason we don't see an R7 version of a Ryzen 7 version of this. It's because it has to fit in the socket. And you're fitting in a CPU and a GPU with these. So it has to fit and it has to run cool and it has to be able to work on a low-end A320 board just as much as it works on a high-end X370 board.
And it is, I guess I do wonder, like, this is already $170. How much is somebody really going to pay for an APU? Are you going to pay $500? I mean, we know full well from Intel's experience with, their Crystal their Broadwell. Well, of course, people said they wanted it, but I don't know if they ever sold any. The ones with the large embedded DRAM that they had.
Yep.
It was like, it was definitely really good performance for Intel Integrated because you got Iris Pro out of it, but hell, it was like $300.
Right.
But if this turns out all right, this $99 one, get yourself a nice $50 A320 motherboard, you could have the core of a good system right there for $150.
Yep.
Very curious to see where this lands actually when it comes out.
Big Green Thugs on Twitch saying, I wonder how many Vega compute units they could squeeze onto a Threadripper. Space.
They do have those dummy dies, right?
Yeah. That'd be interesting, right?
I mean,
That's never gonna happen.
is that an option though? I mean, if graphics cards are such a hard time, what if they're like, oh, you know what, we'll start going more down that route, Integrated,
I don't know.
Integrated takes off. This is Integrated's time to shine.
I don't think that's. I don't think the engineering it would take to do that is really worth it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, in that market, people usually have more money to burn anyway.
yeah, you're buying a $600
Because I mean, those
$700
are
CPU.
those are professional level people that are buying those parts.
Yeah, I just can't see.
Well, but I mean, for somebody like me, like for video production, I need high core count, but I don't necessarily need a beefy GPU.
Right, but I'm just saying, combined with the engineering that would need to happen to make it work, I think for them, I could see them making a business decision of, well, if you're already buying this kind of processor, you're not going to sweat paying another, I don't know what, a minimum $40 or $50 just to be able to output 2 monitors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so funny because I was just thinking of the conversation I used to have with somebody at Intel, and it would be, for years and years, I was frankly, I'm sure the graphics team at Intel is like, they have pictures of me with darts in it. They're like, just wire. This sucks. It sucks. This graphic sucks. It just sucks. Every time it was just like, it sucks. It sucks. And then it was like Sandy Bridge E came out, which, for people who don't remember, this was a 6-core, 8-core CPU that, you could run, they had, quad channel RAM support. It's like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Quad channel RAM support, really nothing uses this. But, it'd be actually kind of cool if you had integrated graphics on this. Like, you've been saying this thing sucks for years, and now you want
big fat dart for that one.
You do want to kind of wonder, like, wow, Threadripper, Skylake X with the quad channel memory controller. It's like, yeah, you could take some more advantage of that memory bandwidth available on those platforms, but then at the same time, it's still just a damned IGP, and you're squeezing it into a little, under a little heat spreader, and you're trying to keep that cool. The CPU's already hot as hell anyway, and you're going to put the graphics in there. It's just not practical, right?
Well, I have one more use case to throw out here. During the GPU drought. We got to see the GeForce Now on PC beta at CES, and we got some codes, and I've been testing it out. It's not bad. It's not bad, especially I even tried it on my Surface Pro 3, just to see how it was there, and I mean it ran mostly fine. I'm not saying it's a great experience.
What were you running?
But well, what did I try? I tried Battlegrounds. Just to see. I've been playing No, I didn't try that. Hold on.
A game.
Yeah, game.
I plan on testing that out more this week myself
there was,
to see, because that seems like that'd be a great option for people.
It is another
like
good
if
option.
your graphics card dies and you can get in on this and still play your games for free until you can afford a new graphics cards, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, no, Doom 2016. That's cause like that's fast pace. You need high frames to not get sick on that.
Reasonable latency.
So yeah, right. So and like I said, I mean if you were to present to me, $160 APU at medium 720p or GeForce Now, I mean, depending, who knows, it's just a beta, there's no prices or anything, but I mean, that's not a bad option either.
It's a good option if you have an internet connection that will actually support it.
Yeah, right.
But and just so people know, because I don't think anybody's seen it actually run, but it works with your Steam collection, right, Adam?
Mm-hmm. And Uplay.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Whatever you sign in. Yeah.
But not Origin.
I'm just trying to think of, Origin, the DRM is not that bad. I was like, man, I just think of the supercomputer they have just to handle Uplay's DRM, just kind of like.
Well, and yeah, you like the first time that I loaded it up, it had me sign into Steam with just a normal Steam prompt, and it was actually just a Windows 10 like desktop. Like I even tried to poke around a little bit, and they were like, no, you can't do that. So I signed into my services, and my library was, right there for use. I tried to see what the configuration was in whatever theoretical cloud system they have, but yeah.
Have you just segued us to the part 3 section there?
We can, yeah, if we want to.
Well, how to fix it? Is that part of how to fix it? Just move to the cloud,
yeah,
everybody. Give up,
right? Yeah, I mean,
right.
Before we do that, though, I do want to give a quick shout out for the people who've shown up late on YouTube and Facebook. PC World is now on Twitch. Well, that's what I was going to say. We're streaming live on Twitch as well. So and not just this show. We're going to be doing PC builds and game streams and stuff. So twitch.tv/PC World US. Definitely go give us a follow. We're going to do some fun stuff over there. So now back to the show.
I did want to say one quick thing before we move on to the final segment, is that so all the options I mentioned for pre-built, it's not limited just to 1080p. Again, in the article, I did find a 1440p option, which is actually a pretty good one because you can configure it to your heart's desire, or you can get what you want. And then there is a 4K option. So if you really want a GTX 1080 Ti, that's probably your only way of getting it without paying like $1,300.
Yeah, just getting a pre-built box. And
Yeah.
everybody has them. I mean, all the
Right.
vendors, they have no problems getting these cards. So.
Yeah. I do
So
think
if you're
it's,
interested in that, you should definitely go check
Okay.
out Alanda's article. It went up yesterday.
Yeah.
Desktops that offer better value than DIY. There's a lot of stuff there that we didn't cover yet. It's all very interesting.
I will say that I am really glad that there are multiple options out there because, say if you don't want to buy a whole new system, you have that potential option of GeForce Now. But if you're like in rural parts of the country and you just can't get a solid broadband connection for that, then you can still buy a pre-built system. Because if it was only one option, man, there are certain people who would just be so stuck.
I'd be in
Right.
trouble if it was where I live. I live very rurally in New Hampshire, and on my road, because I live on a main road, I have broadband, but a lot of my neighbors don't. They don't even have it as an option. So
Wow.
GeForce Now wouldn't work for them.
Do you just sell them some of your broadband over Wi-Fi, long-range Wi-Fi or something?
Dang. So like they're stuck on like dial-up or just really slow broadband.
Probably cellular.
Yeah,
I think.
we have Verizon network out here, stuff like that. Just crappy options, rural options.
God, gaming over LTE's got to be pretty ugly, I bet.
Yeah. There are definitely people who treasure their unlimited plans, from what I can tell.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying on YouTube that data caps is what would ruin it.
Yeah, that sucks. So,
Fixing it.
how do we fix this? I have no ideas. I mean, how do you? Besides, that's why I thought that was
All right,
a good
well,
segue.
thanks, guys.
One way
We're-
to fix is
Peace
just to give
out.
up. You just give up, right? You get right now GeForce Now. It's in beta. You can apply for it if you're lucky. And you're like, hey, can I have this winning lottery ticket for $1 million or GeForce Now? You probably should take GeForce Now at this point. So,
And that's in beta. It's free until it exits beta. They have not said when it's going to exit beta. They had prices announced last year that were kind of high. I'm not sure if those will wind up being the final prices either.
high as in like, we're just making these prices up. Yeah, they were like,
Yeah. But for now, it's free if you get in. So if
How-
you get in, you can sign up for that. You can, play your whole Steam selection and stream it over the internet like you do Netflix. So
How much was it again that they were quoting last year? Like their
Oh.
idea?
it was,
Was it 30 a month, was it?
well, it
forgot.
depends
Like
what
that.
resolution too, right? Oh, you
Yeah.
want to play
It was enough
720p? It was 30.
yeah, it depends on the quality. It was enough that me and Gordon got drunk in Vegas and did a whole
Yeah.
episode mocking them for the prices.
Yeah, it was really like 1080p. Like when you're like, you're going to charge us like, well, I want 4XAA. What's like an extra $5 for that? It's just like, no, turn that off.
Hey, is
There are a
there-
lot of alternative
Sorry.
options to that are popping up now, so I would be surprised if those wind up sticking once it actually exits beta.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, is Liquid Sky still a thing? Like, what other options are there?
Yeah, we got
Liquid
some.
Sky is around. That was
Yeah.
announced for PCs last year. I tested it some during the summer. I never wound up covering it because it was very rough beta at the time that I was testing it. And I didn't want to dump on them before they were ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the time that I tested it last summer, I was trying to play Doom 2016 because I consider that the go-to game to test stuff like this, and it was unplayable. So, but it might be different now. I believe they have free signups, and you can watch ads to earn free time. So, you might want to give that a shot too.
Well, we've got at least one person over on Twitch who says they've tried it.
Yeah.
That it worked well. So
It's really surprisingly good. I mean, it is. I mean, yeah, GeForce Now is very impressive. I don't know if I'd pay $30 for it. Probably not because I have a gaming PC, but it is
See,
really
if my
impressive.
graphics card died, I might pay $30 for it, float out for $30 for 2 or 3 months, and hope
Yeah.
things die down.
Or
Yeah,
2 or
and-
3 months, but not like a whole year. Whew.
Well, but it's still cheaper than an Xbox because you already have you have your Steam collection. If you have $300 or $400 in games on Steam, which is like 500 games.
However, Gordon, I will say the counterpoint to that, outside of games like League and things where it's constantly new because you can log in and it's all about other players. If you already have the game, then you're not really going to care about new games that your system can or can't support. You're only going to care about that if you're trying to buy the new game and your video card isn't going to play it at an acceptable, frame rate or graphics quality. So then in that case, the console could actually work as an option, as Brad pointed out.
I don't know though. I just think we're saying that if you basically you can play a new game and run it on GeForce Now because you're running 750 Ti.
That's assuming you live in a place with broadband, though.
Well, yeah,
Different strokes for different folks, Gordon.
And you can get into the beta.
If you're on dial-up, what do you do if you have a game console?
I mean, same
If you're
problem.
not
The
playing
games all
multi-
have to run.
But if
A
you're
lot of
not
them have
play-
day one patches, but they have to run out of the box.
Yeah, the day
Yeah.
one patch is like bigger than the game itself. It's like,
That is a fair point.
it's like a
That is a
6
fair point.
terabyte. Like I only have a 4 terabyte drive. It's like the patch is 6 terabytes.
I will say one of my biggest beefs with the Xbox One is how many freaking system updates they're constantly pushing now.
Yeah.
And they're not small ones either. A lot of times they're like 300 or 400 megabytes. If you have a data cap that's relatively low, I mean that stuff will eat it.
Or no broadband.
Yeah.
You're just, what do you do?
It is
Just
very
wait for
annoying.
days.
It's very annoying. I do wish that Microsoft hadn't completely abandoned its rural customers, which is one of the reasons why so many of them loved the Xbox 360, is because that they could just play without having to connect to the internet. I wish they would make an option where you could like download the patches onto a USB drive and then like patch, the system
Yeah.
that way. Because then that way that those people could go to like their local like library or some other place that does have broadband, download the patches there. Yeah, exactly. And still be able to, make the console workable. But now, whew,
Well, it's a DRM issue though.
it's just,
Right? 'Cause
it's annoying.
they don't want people. If you could install patches to your Xbox games, they'd be hacked immediately, and you can install the patches, and that's what they're
Just
afraid
Get
of.
into the PC gaming side of things. Another option you could do if you don't want to replace
Sorry.
your whole system is you could buy one of these PCs that Elena mentioned in the last segment. Take out the graphics card. Get this whole system for the price of the graphics card. Put in the old graphics card and sell it to somebody. And
Yeah,
then put the graphics
that's the
card that
thing
you
that's
got into your
happening.
system.
That's
You
the
know
thing that's
that
happening on eBay and Craigslist.
but I like that suggestion, Brad, because it's not because a lot of people the evil side of that from the PC gaming side is that people are buying these boxes, ripping the video cards out of them, and then selling them without a video card on eBay, and they're not like giving them away, but like if you wanted to get one of these cards, you could buy the box, swap your old card into the new box, and then give that new box to somebody else, it's-
Yep, and even though you're getting like the GTX 1070 system for the inflated price of what a GTX 1070 is these days, so you're getting it for $800. If you could turn around and sell the rest of the system for $400 or $500,
Yeah.
then you're right where you should be.
It
Close to
doesn't-
MSRP for these cards.
It doesn't necessarily have to be blatant profiteering on that. You could sell it to a friend
Yeah.
that doesn't have a gaming rig. They want to graduate from consoles to PC gaming. With the, I had to get that.
I
one
knew
in.
you were going to slip that in.
All right, that's a really good idea. What else is there besides? I used to think my suggestion was to rob a liquor store, but I don't want anybody to take that as a suggestion. That is not a suggestion.
I've been seeing EVGA Jacob Freeman from EVGA, who's a product manager at EVGA. He's if you follow him on Twitter, I think it's EVGA_Jacob, maybe Jacob Freeman on Twitter. And I've seen other people from the graphics card market do it too. He'll tweet whenever, hey, we're about to put new stock up on the EVGA website because they sell it directly. Some of the other vendors do that too, and they'll tweet, give you, okay, guys, heads up, 5 minutes. We're going to have stock up here. Get it fast.
It's like an Amazon Lightning deal.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
fast can you hit that button and check out?
I think it's more dire than that. It's more
But
like.
go
ahead, Brad.
He's also been doing EVGA in particular has also been doing bundles. So like you can get these days if you go to Amazon or Newegg, you'll have to spend $800-$700 on a GTX 1070. But EVGA has been selling bundled hardware. So they're for instance bundling motherboards or their closed loop liquid coolers with GTX 1070s and 1080s. And selling those for $650-$700. So it's like you're getting both pieces of hardware. It's actually about the MSRP value of what both of them should be. So it mitigates it somewhat. At least you're getting two new things for the price of what you would have spent on the GTX 1070 alone at a third-party site.
Is that directly from EVGA, or do you have to go to a retailer for that?
That was directly from EVGA.
Oh,
There's rumors that Micro Center, if you go and talk to a manager and say, hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of components for a new PC, you sell me this graphics card for not these crazy prices that you have up. The managers have leeway to cut you a deal.
Really?
You buy multiple components, but you just supposedly have to talk to a manager, and it's up to their discretion. But if you're in a pinch, give it a shot.
Tip the person $20. By the way, that works too.
Be super nice.
Give them a secret signal. Really, that's crazy. That's just like
That's old school. The human touch.
I like that though. That does work.
Nice.
Yeah, there's different websites like nowinstock.com or .net. I don't know. Now in Stock. There are different websites that you can say, okay, I want the specific part, and I want to spend this much, and you put it in, and then sign up for email notifications, and they'll let you know whenever they arrive on different e-tailer sites. So you could be first to the punch when new stock does arrive.
You mean like waiting to buy an iPhone? You just wait outside the store. Oh, you here for the new iPhone? No, I'm waiting for a GTX 1050 for $400.
Are you in the line for Amazon Go? No, I'm just here for a graphics card.
Oh my God, that's just.
Can you imagine if they ever sold graphics cards at an Amazon Go location?
Oh my goodness.
Those are some really good suggestions though, Brad. I like that about following Jacob too. It's interesting that they let people know, like, hey, we're shipping these out. I mean, and then you then have to race the speculators that are buying all those cards and reselling them at twice the value. So
yeah, but they're probably not following, the product manager on Twitter. So
They might be now, Brad.
right now they are.
Oh, I wanted to tack on to that suggestion. Twitter does offer notifications. So you can actually follow someone's account and choose specifically to get mobile notifications or text message notifications every time they tweet. So that's
how
a
I got
good
my Switch.
it's a good way to pair things together to be like ready right on the dot when that link goes up.
Oh, no.
I don't have any more suggestions off the bat, but I've seen that from a couple of different vendors on Twitter. So if you're really looking for a graphics card, it might be worth looking around for verified accounts tied to these. Make sure they're verified accounts, if you can, tied to these different companies.
Well, over on Twitch, we have a great suggestion. Bastu, I don't know how to pronounce it. He says, why don't you just sign up for GeForce Now and then have whatever card is in GeForce Now do your mining, and then you get the money from that. It just perfect. Boom.
Let's see, $3 a day.
Get that card in 2 years.
But you don't have to buy anything to mine. You let GeForce do it for you.
No, I got
NVIDIA.
another. This is a crazy thing now. What about going older generations? How far back can you go? Like if you were to say, let's use it. Oh, sorry, let's use this example: 750 Ti or a 7850. Does it make sense to do a 6 series or a 7 series or no? No, a higher end.
If you
like
have working hardware, if you have a working graphics card in your computer right now, just hold on to it if you can. Don't try to upgrade. Even the older stuff on eBay or Craigslist or whatever is going for wildly high prices. Like what was I looking up yesterday? A 980, GTX 980, and they were selling for $350 to $400, which isn't horrible, but it's not great.
It's definitely not the prices we saw when the 1080 or 10 series first came out.
How many generations back can you go till it's not affected?
I don't think buying used is effective right now in general, unless you happen to find a good deal.
Even looking right now at the hardware swap subreddit, it's not as bad as eBay, but it's still inflated.
We have a 460 back on that wall over there, We could always pop that in.
So
460 would not be bad, honestly.
So what 1080 Ti on like Newegg or Craigslist or eBay right now is anywhere from $1,100 to $1,300, right?
Around that.
Yeah. So if you buy like direct from somebody else used through the hardware subreddit, it's like 900 something, 920 or 940, which is not as inflated, but it's still definitely inflated.
This stuff hurts my heart so bad.
I know.
Yeah.
It's such a good time for PC gaming right now. Like PC gaming was experiencing a renaissance. Everywhere you went to CES, there's PC gaming everywhere. But anybody who actually tries to get in on that now is just boned.
Right. Between getting smashed in the face with the RAM and the GPU. It's crazy. I just want to mention, I was looking at, because I have like a stack of 580s just moldering away from forever. And these are, at one point, these were very high end cards.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wonder where they are in the power band these days. It's like, damn, like a 1050, like almost kicks the ass of a 580. It's just crazy. It's just, we're talking GeForce 580,
Well,
folks,
I mean-
not the RX 580.
Yeah.
But it's just like, whoa.
Well, but hey, if that APU is equivalent to a 1030, right? I mean, your 580 is better than that.
It is better, yes, 580. But at the same time, 580 is a power hog, too.
I was about to
So
say the power draw on that is going to
You're
be
not
quite
gonna-
different than an APU.
There's always these weird things that are like kind of screw you, like oh, higher clock RAM is better, but then costs more money, the old GPU. Last question though, could you fix it with SLI, Brad?
Never.
You have
That's a trick
God.
question, Gordon.
Yeah.
You can,
Don't
if
even.
you can if you mine with it during the off hours.
even if you had a 7 series, like no, just no, don't do it.
I
do it.
don't consider SLI, or they don't even call it Crossfire anymore on AMD side. They got rid of that. They just call it MGPU for multiple GPU.
Really,
I
it's
don't
not even
consider
called Crossfire.
Yeah, they got rid of that branding 100%.
They did. Did they ever give a reason why?
Because DirectX 12 isn't technically Crossfire. It's using the DirectX multi-GPU stuff, and they figure it's easier just to use one term for everything.
That's fair.
Wow. Okay, so that's not a solution either. You just can't, like, if you had a 680, go out and buy a second 680 and get a little more performance. I mean,
Never.
you used to get decent amounts.
It depends, because the thing is, those cards are still selling for so much use right now. And in the games that support them, sure, you'll get a little bit extra. But so many games don't support multi-GPU these days that you'd just be paying inflated prices for an old GPU that doesn't work half the time.
Yeah. And it's even, just to add to the suckage of that, I tested a laptop. Acer had two 1080, GTX 1080 laptop, it had 1080 SLI. In some newer games, it actually decreased performance by turning on SLI, right? It's like, why? I went in there, turned off SLI, and like, oh yeah, look how great the performance is running on one GPU. And you turned it on for two. It was ugly. It was ugly. I don't know what we're going to do there. So
I know that Omen X back there has two 1080s and SLI. And it's just like that's a lot of money already in that case.
yeah, it's just, I don't know what the hell to do. Any other suggestions?
Well, real quick, but I mean, we're talking about what we can do. What can we touch on a little bit, but I mean, what can these companies do? Other than increasing demand or trying to say, hey, please sell to gamers. I mean, like, what are the companies doing for us?
I thought there was a really interesting comment during AMD's recent quarterly financials, which is not a sentence I ever thought I would say in my life, because I'm a person who hates quarterly financials and all that stuff. But somebody asked Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, so I mean, demand for these things is through the roof. What are you guys doing? There's been rumors that you guys can't create these fast enough. You don't have the, fabrication capabilities. And she's like, no, we could scale up GPU production if we wanted to, if our customers were asking that for us. But the problem right now is the RAM prices. Or memory prices are such highly constrained and in so much demand right now that she said they would have issues scaling up GPU production because there's so little RAM going around these days.
And that's because of phones, right?
Phones, tablets, everything needs RAM these days.
Well, plus HBM2 there's sole source, right? Samsung still, I think. Nobody else is really making it yet, so.
Yeah, Hynix might be, but
Kinda.
Yeah.
But Samsung is really holding all the.
But people aren't really clamoring for the Vega cards, are they?
Well, I think
it's
they're
just
clamoring
memory
for
in
anything.
general.
No, I know,
Memory
but
in
specific to the HBM2 comment, that's all.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I do think if HBM2 were dirt cheap, they could definitely have ramped up, the Vega launch a little better.
It's true.
Because, I mean, it does feel like I don't think it was necessarily miners that drove up those Vega cards. It was just simply,
Supply.
They ain't no
limited supply.
HBM2 around.
Especially with so many going to Apple, whatever. Apple is getting Vega graphics cards. I forget the name of the exact Apple because I'm not an
iMac
Apple
Pro.
guy. Yeah, the iMac Pro has Vega in it, and I'm sure they're like, this is what you're giving us, and AMD has to work around that. So if there's an HBM2 demand, then Apple's getting first cut. It's going to be the same thing with the new Intel chip. I bet. They get first dibs on all that.
Yeah, AMD graphics sort of gets slammed with that because they have they have to fill the Apple order. So here's X amount of HBM2s, and then now Now, Intel is not buying those HBM2s from AMD, I bet. I bet they're buying them directly from Samsung. So now AMD has to compete with, NVIDIA and Intel for HBM2 modules. So they're just like, I guess they're not modules, they're just chips. But it's just kind of like, I would love to see, I should ask around to see what the cost of 4 gigs of HBM2 is these days.
I bet you it's not cheap.
Yes, that would be.
But yeah, that's the issue. I mean, if, like we were saying in the beginning of the show, if demand keeps up indefinitely, then supply will eventually follow, I'm sure. But at this point, I mean, you just kind of grin and bear it. If the market does keep crashing, I'm sure we'll see a lot of used graphics cards flood the market. I'd be wary necessarily about buying a used graphics card from a miner unless you're able to see it working in a system before you do so, just to make sure it actually works. But
yeah, so
waiting it out.
Yeah. That's a good fix. Just wait.
Just wait. I mean, yeah, you could just wait it out. If you really need to upgrade your system, just upgrade everything else and pop in your old graphics card and just keep on tinkering away.
That was my number one suggestion in my How to Keep Gaming During This Crisis article that I did a few weeks ago. If you can, just sit still. Just put off upgrading for 6 months and see what happens.
Well, actually, we had a couple people, somebody on Twitch and then Sharp at Thunder over on YouTube saying that there's some sort of article floating around about wafer manufacturers having a 20% price increase in 2018, and like driving up costs again, and we're just going to continue to see spikes. I mean, yeah.
I've seen those articles. I'm not 100% sure about the provenance of those. I'm not 100% sure where they got necessarily all that information from. Mm-hmm. But even if they're true, the actual cost of the wafers themselves are such a little part of the cost of actually getting a CPU or GPU that it's not anything to panic over, I don't think. At least not yet.
Okay.
Damn.
What? But the only places I've seen that info referenced are places that don't directly name sources, etc. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think, because Brad, do you think because clearly Volta is long overdue, if it just drops, is it going to help or make it worse or what? I mean, do you think it could help at all? Because suddenly nobody wants to buy these old 10 series cards?
I don't know at this point. I don't know what to expect out of NVIDIA. I don't know if we'll see it anytime soon with everything still selling how it is. Why roll out something new?
Yeah. Because you got to move forward, right? You got to move forward.
They do, but it remains to be seen.
The yields on these 2-year-old cards must be so good at this point. You're taking a gamble moving to a more advanced process node to make new chips. That'll probably, give you less return on investment. I don't know. I can understand why we haven't seen any new cards recently. It bums me out very much, but I wouldn't be surprised if they even skip Volta at this point, because Volta's been around since May, I think it was. Before Vega came out, they had shown off the data center Volta chip. And with the GTX 10 series with Pascal, they said, hey, here's the data center chip. And then less than a month later, we had consumer graphics cards. And it's been 8-9 months since then now, as far as Volta is concerned. So I'm not even sure if we'll see Volta. We might see the follow-up to Volta at some point.
I don't know. I would think they've got to do something. I mean, I suppose that is a really negative side effect here, because the only reason why they don't really have to move is they're selling these things out all day. So why bother, right? So that's actually very negative. And the thing is, we know in technology, you got to keep moving forward. If you just stop and, if the shark stops swimming, it drowns. So if graphics don't move forward, then what the hell's going to happen to us, right? We're going to all just buy consoles?
Just to argue with myself a little bit there, I think they could have a reason, NVIDIA in particular, to push a next series graphics card, just simply because of these fancy G-Sync HDR monitors that they're trying to get out there. The BFGDs, the TV size ones. There's ultra wide monitors that run at 144 hertz or 120 hertz. Same deal. They have 4K 120 hertz monitors that were supposed to come out last summer, but they've been delayed to the first quarter. And today's graphics cards cannot power that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see at least like a high-end 1180 Ti or I can't keep track of these numbers. Next gen.
XXXP.
Yeah.
But
Something at least on the high end that can push 120 hertz 4K monitor so they can sell those incredibly expensive, valuable monitors
that
as well.
still sounds like it's going to be a ways out, though, because, I mean, they started showing that off at, last year's CES? And we haven't heard a peep out of them about when to expect those to drop. So
This quarter.
Supposedly.
Yep.
So it's just like, it almost seems like we have to wait for that before anything else is going to move. Like when they're ready to release those, then we might actually see the hardware that could power them.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just sit on those until they're ready to release a new GPU generation either. So
Yeah, exactly. So it seems a little chicken or egg, and that could just be a long time before either appear.
See, that's what's bad. You know, you just gotta launch at some point just to keep things moving forward. Once you stop, it's over.
I mean, it depends. Do they like innovation or do they like money?
Well, you know, part of that is it feeds itself, right? You got to keep going. If you don't have goals to move forward, then you know you get lazy, you get complacent, you start doing things that aren't. You do things that aren't core
Sorry, I had
to
something.
You do things that aren't core to your business, and your customers they look somewhere else. They get bored, So. Hell, I mean, this is just horrible. We have graphics cards have not moved much in the last 2 years, it feels like. So.
But there's not
They've gone up.
many places to go, Gordon. Like, if you had a ton of competition, then yeah, that would force them to keep moving. But as Brad pointed out, they don't have any impetus to move.
HDR gaming, HDR panels. I mean, higher.
Well, but still, I mean,
It's
most people are 1080p.
Yeah, it's such a small portion of the market.
You know what led us, and Adam, of course, people was talking smack about Intel, but Intel, everybody gives them, and I've given Intel a really hard time for IGP, which grew out of its integrated chipset way back in the 810 days, but it made perfect sense. Intel said, you know what? We're just going to do just good enough. 90% of people don't play games. All they want to do is load a browser and start Word and Excel. That's it. So that's what our chipset does. They didn't aim high enough with IGP. I mean, really, a lot of the reasons that I think they're hurting today is they decided this is just good enough. Just good enough computing gets you to IGP, what IGP did, which was this thing just around Intel's neck forever, right? If they had actually continued to we're going to do high-end graphics, we're going to compete with, NVIDIA and ATI, AMD, they would not be in the pickle they are right now because they're getting eaten alive by graphics in the data center. So I think just the whole just good enough is not what the entire industry aims for, and that's what leads you to really, really crappy situations.
I don't disagree with you. I just think people get really caught up in the immediate circumstances sometimes.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And being at the top of the food chain. So.
It's just sad. But what happens is when you're at the top of the food chain, something comes along and eats you. So
I think today's NVIDIA is a lot more aggressive than yesteryear's Intel is as far as staying on top of the technology as well. So
yeah. But again, I ain't seeing no 1180 Volta here, right? So what's up with that? So
I'm just the dude who wants to watch the world burn, and I'm hoping that all these crashing crypto coin prices just keep on going down, and we get our graphics cards back, and they're maybe $50 extra because RAM costs more now. That's what I'm hoping.
Or it just comes. I mean, what happens is we have an overcorrection in the market. Suddenly, nobody's buying these things for mining, and then suddenly, holy smokes, I can get a 1060 for $100, right? Which is entirely. I think one day we're gonna laugh. We're gonna look back, and a 1060 will be $100.
I'm not sure if laughter will be the reaction. Maybe more like a whew, sigh of relief.
Please don't have that happen again.
I brought it up in 4 or 5 of these, but last April they were selling 4 gigabyte RX 480 for $120. You could find them. So
yep,
that was less than a year ago.
You should have bought 10 of them, Brad.
No one knew.
All right.
Well, let's
Do we have any outstanding questions? Because I'm going to wrap this
we're
up.
good, you know. Yeah, people are depressed now, Gordon.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's just like, sorry.
Wow, you know, this is what a depressing show.
We bummed out the internet.
Yeah,
Sorry, everybody.
that's what
we'll
happens when you turn 40. You know, you just start to get a little depressed.
Hopefully we'll have something positive. Hopefully soon, one of these days. But all right, I'm going to take us out so we can go get a stiff drink to talk about the more graphics, the situation, and RAM situation.
Perfect.
Check back in 2 weeks for your fix of PC hardware on The Full Nerd. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And, of course, leave us reviews there. Every time you do, AMD and NVIDIA have committed to making one more graphics card in the market. I'm lying. They're not going to do that. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. Thanks for coming. I hopefully will have better news one day in the future. I'm Gordon Mong with Brad Charkis.
Adios, y'all.
Elena Yee.
Bye, everybody.
And Adam Patrick Murray.
Check us out on Twitch. We'll at least play games over there. Try to have some fun. See you.